Hello, hello. I'm here with John Morgan,
Hello.
Robert Steuckers.
Yeah, hello, everyone.
You want to introduce yourself or not?
Sjors Remmerswaal
As well. And we're all in a town in Flanders somewhere, drinking special beers, having all kinds of tastes. Probably going to have a terrible hangover tomorrow. At least you are going to, at this rate. And well, I wanted to start by talking a little bit with John Morgan. It's the first time we meet in person. We've talked a bit, of course, online before. And you've apparently been to Flanders a lot more than I thought you would have been.
This is my fourth time here.
Right. And what's your impression of Flanders?
Well, I like Flanders a lot. I really knew nothing about it before I came here the first time, but I first spoke to an NSV Congress in 2015, and I was very impressed with the Flemish movement and the friends that I made on that trip, and they've been very good about showing me around the region and teaching me a little bit about its history and its culture, and it's something that I find quite beautiful and interesting, and somehow quintessentially Northwest European, I would say. I mean, everything. Perhaps it's because of my own Germanic background, but when I'm here, I feel like everything is as it should be.
Yeah. I think the architecture helps, because in the Netherlands, a lot of the architecture has been destroyed by the war and by cultural vandals, well, Marxist and vandals, both of them. So what do you like the most about Flanders? Have you been to the Netherlands, actually? The Netherlands, the North.
I was there for one day a couple of years ago.
So you can't really make a comparison.
No, I mean it seemed nice, but I was also busy, so I wasn't really paying much attention. So I need to make a more thorough visit one of these days to the Netherlands.
We'll put that in the agenda for another time. So you gave a speech today about Hungary. That was quite interesting.
Thank you.
I think there's a few articles up on Countercurrents which you can read. There was one of the translation of the Visegrad Post which talks about the disintegration of Jobbik.
Yes, at Countercurrents we had that translated to English. There's going to be an entire book about this, at least in French, by the same author, but he sort of prepared a shorter version of it, and that's the version that was published at Countercurrents. And that gives the whole story of how they went from being a very staunch radical right-wing party to being whatever they are today. I guess charitably you could say liberal conservative.
Centrist.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's a very interesting story. That will you put the speech online in some capacity?
Yeah, I'm sure I'll publish it.
We'll reference that then, so people can.
Maybe at Euro Synergies.
Yeah, sure.
Well, let me switch to you, Mr. Steuckers. We've met at an Erkenman conference once in the past, and we met in Brussels once as well.
Yeah,
the day after Trump's election.
Yeah, okay. And you had a nice, you had a nice cap on your head.
Yes, a red hat.
With American first to make America
great again.
Great
Yes,
again.
indeed.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember. Yeah. So we were there with a quite interesting company. It was not planned, but many people were in Brussels these days. So it was an international meeting.
Yeah.
With Spanish friends.
Yeah, the most interesting thing was this Spanish publisher. I was talking to him, and after we kind of got along, he started talking to me about a deal about doing arms trade to Africa. If I wanted to invest in arms trade to Africa. And I kind of felt like, are you trying to be a stereotype of what it is to be a right-wing nationalist, or what is it that you're trying to do? That was very funny, but it was a very interesting day. Then afterwards, of course, you went to the Erkenman conference as a speaker.
So I went, that was at the end of the year 2017. So where I tried to actualize, to interpret in the present day situation the core message of the German conservative revolution.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
And of a part of the Enlightenment that was not at the origin of the cultural Marxism, as you say, but at the origin of the ethnic consciousness in Europe. It was, of course, the Aufklärung, the Enlightenment of Herder, who was a German priest and philosopher, who traveled throughout Europe and who decided that the most important things in the people's life was his literature, his cultural creations, and that they were the answer to all kind of misery, of intellectual misery, and that they had to be maintained in order to have freedom. You cannot have freedom without a cultural identity.
Well, identity of some sort, certainly, I'd say. But you two apparently also knew each other.
Well, we've been corresponding for years, and we did meet once in Brussels about 2 years ago.
No, we met first in Antwerp when Mr. Friedberg presented the Dutch version of his book about the real right.
Yes, we just
we met just briefly there because I had to take a train.
I wasn't even aware that had been translated.
It has been translated into Dutch. Yeah.
Did you do the translation?
No, I don't know who did it, but it was done, and it was in the University of Antwerp.
Okay.
He presented it in the University of Antwerp, and so I was present, of course, because I wanted to hear him, to have the book, etc. But yeah.
But of course, I've known of Mr. Steuckers' work for probably 20 years now, or more.
20 years
since I first came across her name in connection with the New Rights, which is a long-time interest of mine.
Yeah.
Which, to my mind, is still the most interesting thing that intellectually that the right has produced.
I'd say Archaeofuturism has had a big influence on me as well. Although I think I'm more social Darwinist, most of these things. Everything to me is evolution, but. Yeah, I think Archaeofuturism is actually the most innovative ideological concept that we've had in a long time.
So that was the fight. It was fight production in the 80s. And so
yes.
I was close to him at that time. So I saw when I experimented the genesis of this of Archaeofuturism.
But it's only getting grip now. I think most of these people who were known in the far right back in the day have become more known over the last recent years, like Ebola, like Francis Bakayoko, and so on. These were all fringe figures that have now become, to work at Arctos and at Countercurrents especially, of course, have become much more widely known in right-wing circles.
That's been my mission.
Well, it's been quite successful. I'd say.
For over a decade now.
Yeah.
I mean, my friends and I, when we first started Integral Tradition Publishing, which was the predecessor to Arctos, that was what we noticed. There was all these great texts, but they were almost completely unknown in English. There were almost no New Right texts other than a few articles that appeared in obscure journals before Arctos came along.
Yeah, that's right.
So that was one of our intentions, and of course Greg Johnson had a similar idea.
Yeah. So let me ask you something. Why do you think that Arctos succeeded where a lot of other people didn't? Because I'm always interested in this because there's always something that succeeds. These things have always been tried sometime before, and then one of them breaks through. What do you think has made the difference with Arctos or with Countercurrents?
Well, we were all very dedicated early on. I don't know anything. I've been gone now for several years. I don't know what's going on there now. But when we first started, we were based in India.
Yeah, I've heard.
And we were all living very austere lifestyles, and we didn't really do a whole lot other than work. So we worked very hard, and we were very lucky that there were some people who invested money in the company who allowed us to do what we did. And we were just able to make it happen. It just takes dedication and resources.
Was it maybe just the right time as well?
Yeah, well, there were certain factors that allowed us to do it that were unique to something you couldn't have done like even 10 years before, like print on demand. That's been a real revolution in publishing. It's been a boon for the rights.
Technology in general has really favored us for social media. And,
the internet,
yes, exactly.
The fact that we were able to live in India and yet run a company that was selling books in Europe and the United States. That was North America, I should say. That was, it's... now there's a lot of people who followed the model that we established. But I would have to say, I think we were the pioneers of that.
the publishing, I think, yes, I think so. And well, I'm not sure that many people, because I think one of the issues that you have if you want to be a nationalist in a publishing house is, for example, if you want to do that in Dutch, your audience is a hundredth the size or so of an English-speaking audience. So that's a limitation there, of course. And the same thing with articles. Like I write for almost every big nationalist website in the Netherlands. I write for them in one capacity or another. But we noticed that, of course, the traffic there is minimal compared to big English websites, dissident websites. So you always have this limitation of other languages is always.
Well, you're lucky in English. I mean, you get not only the United States and the UK and all the other Anglophone countries, but I mean, especially in Western Europe, most young people grow up knowing English these days, so that gives us an audience there as well.
So I can tell you, even in the Netherlands, in Flanders, they are going to read 5, for instance, in English and not in French.
Yeah.
Scandinavia is a market too,
Yes.
which was totally inaccessible before your translations. Then even Spain. I see that in Spain they go and will buy the English version of the books, even than the French. And in Germany, of course, Phi is better known now in Germany due to the English translation.
But Germany still has
by
its
the
own
French
cultural
original.
circle. I mean, Germany still maintains this insular little cultural circle where they have a big enough cultural space where they can publish their own works in German. That's Germany and France do this.
No, France, it's very difficult.
Yeah, I had the impression that France did more of this, like with the Institut Troy or something. It's a think tank called Institut Troy or something along those lines.
Iliad.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but they don't publish books still yet.
I thought no articles.
Or 1 or 2 books presenting this new initiative, which is, of course, very interesting, and giving, I think, partly the speeches given during the annual conference.
Yeah. Which is again
held in Paris, but I've never had the opportunity to go there because it's in April, and in April I'm in Spain.
Well, again, that's actually something you never really hear about, because the right wing, what you would say, online sphere is dominated by Americans, of course. It's the American websites and so on that set the agenda and the message kind of for a lot of, even for Europe. And you hear about Scanza, and maybe you'll hear some about it, but there's all these German and French conferences that you never really hear about. And that might be something that, well, we can improve, of course, on our side for making a better online presence, because in Europe the presence on the ground is usually better than online, and in America it seems to be vice versa. Huge online presence and not a very effective on the ground presence. So there could be some learning from both sides there, really. One learning how to build some websites, do some social media campaigning, and the other to build actual movements. So yeah, you never hear about the Iliad conference. Ekmel conference is also, it's more often mentioned.
Then I'm in those circles.
Well, yes, exactly. You hear more about that, but I mean, Scanza is well known. Everyone knows Scanza. And maybe you hear about everyone, but then you never hear about Iliad, or you don't hear what Publishing House on Tyres is doing. You don't know what the
It's because of the language. That's because of the language. So I've been one time to the Institut Iliade Congress in April, and it was really interesting. Also, 2 or 3 book publishers were there, like also some books of Guillaume Fay, which is mentioned earlier. So, but they say we are a European organization. We are here to present and defend and propagate the European civilization, but it's all in French, and it is very French. That makes it difficult. And of course, English-speaking people, they can't really understand that. So that is a problem.
So that's a problem everywhere. Problem is a problem of translations, of translation in general. So, of course, in
you were
France,
complaining about this earlier today.
I was complaining about that, about the lack of translation from the Italian language into Dutch or German or English, simply, especially for the Dutch-speaking people, because in Flanders and in the Netherlands, you have this verzuiling, means the polarization of society, which is being criticized in Italy since decades at a very high university level, and we are ignoring about it. So it would have been intellectual weapons in order to correct the problems we have in our society. It has never been done. That's what I complain. But for the Institut Eliades, they have made translation of a film. They did.
That's correct.
So, and there is even a Dutch version of it, I think. Yeah, that's it. But that's the problem. And you know, the French will tell you the same. The level, the books, and the books, the teaching books, the handbooks, the schools are good in English, are good in German, but there is a lack of interest for languages in general. We see it in the French-speaking part of Belgium too, and that's the main problem. It's the main problem for the diffusion, for the spreading of ideas, and that's a problem. So in France they say we are the heirs of the German conservative revolution. There is no one able to read a single book in German, except two or three guys from Alsace.
Which is German.
Yeah.
Well, there was an article that Dugan wrote a couple of years ago called "If you have something to say, say it in English."
Well,
but you can get the meaning of what he wrote
just from that. Yeah. I mean, I write whenever I want to. I write for Dutch websites when I'm talking about Dutch issues. Yeah. But if I want to write about something more relevant, I usually go to like Countercurrents, or I find other English language websites to write for, because if you don't write it in English, it's really not going to spread. And if I write in Dutch for a Dutch audience, a lot of it will be lost on that audience because they don't know the context and so on.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite true what he says, really. And maybe that's the way you should separate things into spheres of your local and the international sort of sphere of things. Yeah. You have anything to add there, Sjors?
No, I'm thinking that language also gives very good insights in someone's culture and someone's country and some of the political ideas who are typical for that country. So if it could be more translated out of languages like Hungarian or Italian, I think it would also give us some more insights in and maybe some munition for the struggle we're facing. So.
Yeah, because I mean, we're all nationalists, of course, but there is this sense of cooperation between. I mean,
I could say exactly the same for Spanish, because there are a lot of things that are given. Also, the critique on the fundamental liberal base of the system of today is from laicized, I would say, not a staunch Catholic point of view, but I would say an Aristotelian views.
Well, I think the Francoist perspective, at least, is gaining ground among Catholics. If you look at the Bolivian Revolution, if you look at the SSPX and so on, that perspective is gaining ground.
I would simply give an example. They're all astonished to see the success of Vox in the last elections in Spain. But it is obvious when you were walking in the streets of Madrid in April. In April, it was the El Día del Libro, so the day of the book, to translate it literally. And most of the stands in the streets were selling the book of Abascal, or the book presenting the ideas of Vox, or the book of a philosopher saying, yes, look, that's a solution for the main problems in Spain. And, well, it's not an ideology, or it's not a message, a political message that is linked to the past. Absolutely
well,
not. But to the real problem. A Spanish society which is crippled by partitocracy, like our society, along about the same lines. So it's also for us more interesting to see. For instance, it would be a very good inspiration source for the NVA in Flanders. To see how Vox is going to develop and to speak to the young people.
It's always a chain effect. One pushes the other, and one tests, the other follows, and so on. But what I found interesting about at least in the Spanish thing is when they recently unearthed Francisco Franco's body.
Yeah, and I just went in July. I went to this place, which is mostly impressive. But one thing I was astonished, it had been completely restored before the taking away of his body from the place. It has been completely restored because some years ago it was in a derelict situation, in a derelict state. I mean the church underground. And so I was very astonished. I said, nothing will happen, but it happened anyway.
Well, what surprised me is that there were hundreds of people there singing Cara al Sol.
So there is everywhere in Spain.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Spain still has these sort of sympathies lying deep underground because, frankly, for the average Spaniard, the regime was really not that bad. I lived in Portugal for a very long time, about 12 years, and I had a school teacher there, a history school teacher, and he would always say, well, it was always better under Salazar. It was always better under Salazar than under this current EU regime. And this was a common sentiment among the older generation. Especially the veterans of the colonial wars, a lot of them were like, well, we shouldn't have, we fought for nothing, and we should have stayed there, we were winning. And especially during the crisis, everyone was praising Salazar. Because, in Portugal, if you go to the countryside, people still live in houses made out of stones stacked on top of each other, and they survive in subsistence farming. They don't even have tractors or anything. It hasn't really changed from the 19th century. So for them, at least there would be a government in power that cares about them. So in their opinion, it's like, well, Salazar was a lot better.
So it was easier to understand.
Yeah, it's easy.
I mean, the message was easier to understand for common people. That's the problem. It's now even the message of the dominant parties here in Flanders are ununderstandable for the average citizen.
Yeah,
they are not interested in what they are not interested in what the common politician is telling them.
Because they're talking in
genderism.
They're talking in dogma and ideology and so on, of course. Yeah.
It's dogmatic. Let's take the example of the Socialist Party. The Socialist Party is supposed to do something for the working class, but there is absolutely nothing, and the working class is losing, like the middle class everywhere in the West is losing the power to buy everyday life
purchasing
things.
Power,
Purchasing power is lost, and they don't see any evolution anymore. So all these, all the discourse, all the blah blah about the progressiveness of socialism, liberalism is fake news for them, because they don't see any difference. On the contrary.
Anything to add? Because we promised we'd keep this a bit short, so we'll give it our last round for comments. Do you have anything to add?
Would you like me to address something specific?
No, not particularly.
No, a comment for the days that you spend here in Flanders.
Well, it's always wonderful, and I know I'll keep coming back here many more times. I can't say when at this point, but I know I'll be back.
And we'll keep in touch, so maybe we can invite you to the Netherlands sometime as well.
That would be great.
Just a last comment, your friends are also welcome, and they will have exactly the same beer as you have here. The Golden Draken, it means the Golden Dragon, and that's the beer that we give Michael Walker from the Scorpion many years ago, and that he went back completely drunken out of the pub.
I'm in contact with him. I'll have to remind him about that. No, I can definitely recommend to anyone if you want to come to Belgium. They have the greatest beer in the world.
They definitely do.
Bar none.
So, and better than
Terrible roads, lots of socialists, but they've got good beer at least.
Yeah, so you won't care about all the other things.
I think that's how they keep the country running, to be honest. Sure, you've got anything to add?
Not really. I'm interesting. If someone listening this podcast and he's a translator, maybe he can assist us to translate some interesting articles from somewhere in Europe. And
you speak Italian or some other exotic language,
so we can learn something more.
That's a good idea. That's a good point to make there. All right, we'll round that up then, and hopefully we can
thank you.
talk more in the future.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.